Hello.
Test, test. Check, check. Make check. Good.
Hope you guys are all doing all right. We got Kamil today and me, Wes. Kamil set us up a patch, and I think we'll start and we'll just do a quick breakdown. Kind of go through what's going on. Maybe we can just single out like individual voices, things like that, and then. We've got some unpatched modulation. We got the TED in here. We got some channels on the Quadrax still. So we'll do some tweaks and we'll take any feedback that you guys want to see us do the system that we have here. But yeah, I think the levels are good.
Cool. Well, good morning, everybody. Yeah, so this is just a little bit of a improvised jam using this system we've put together here. And basically what we've done here is put all our kind of digital control modules in the bottom row, and then have a whole bunch of analog sound sources in this kind of top 3U row here. And then in the very top 1U row, we've just got a bunch of utilities that tie everything together. And so this patch is basically just 4 voices. We've got a bass and a lead, and those are both being sequenced by the Metropolix sequencer here. And then there's a kick drum and a kind of noisy snare-ish kind of thing. So I'll just turn down the reverb here. And so the first voice, everything is going in through the quad VCA where we're doing the mixing of everything. So the first voice, just kind of mangled right now, but there we go. So the top voice here is the bass line. And for the bass line, basically we're just using a Dixie 2 Plus oscillator, which is going through this bifold here, this wave folder. So that lets me kind of, I don't know if you can hear that across the stream, but it's kind of just like a subby bass sound. And then with the crossfade, I can fade in various amounts of wave folding. Just turn on modulation here. So with the wave folder up and the crossfade up, we can get kind of the higher harmonic wave folded sound. And then if we turn down the crossfader, we get kind of more of the bass fundamental. And that is pretty much all for that sound. And the second sound is what I was using for the lead. And for that, surprise sound. And so for the lead, we're using the Rubicon 2, and that's being modulated, FM modulated, using the through zero FM, using the Dixie 2 Plus. And so both of these get their pitch from the Metropolix to keep them kind of in sync. And then as you can turn up the FM index on the Rubicon, you kind of get varying kind of FM sounds, which I did throughout the thing. And actually both of that and the bass voice go into the Morgasmatron here in the middle, and that kind of lets me filter out some of the harshness from the FM and get kind of a more mellow sound.
When you were patching, you found so much variation in that FM knob?
Yeah.
Just from the one Dixie.
Exactly. Yeah, like if I turn up... you get a really wide range of sounds just from that. And so it's helpful to have the filter there to kind of keep things controlled. So then that's kind of the bass and lead sounds. And then the third sound we're using is the kick drum. And for the kick drum, I'm actually using the other bifold, and that gets its oscillator from this third Dixie that we have here. And it's just basically a sine wave, and we've got the Quadrax that's doing some pitch modulation to get the kind of like dial in that kind of typical pitch sweep you get on a kick drum, and that just goes into the bifold, and again we can use that to kind of add more harmonics to the kick for some variation. And then finally the third sound, which is kind of the simplest one, I'm just using some pink noise from the noise tools up here and just running that through our LPG, the low pass gate 1U, and that's also being controlled by Quadrax envelope to kind of set the length of that snare drum. And the drums are being sequenced by the Steppy here on the right. And like I said before, the melody and the bass line both come from the Metropolix. And I just have some preset sequences I've made on the Steppy, and I can just switch between those using these buttons while it's in load mode. So it's very easy to kind of switch between drum sequences. And then finally, hear this for the melody, I'm using the planar, and it's kind of a use I don't see being used very much, but it's a really good application of the planar too. Is you have a couple inputs here. In this case, I've got the snare drum and the melody are going into inputs B and C of the planar 2. And if I pan to B, then I get kind of that reverb wash off the melody. Or if I pan to C, the reverb wash is applied to the snare drum and kind of go in between. Or if I go back to A or D, anywhere in here, then there's no additional reverb. And that's kind of a nice effect for performance. So that is pretty much the breakdown of the patch. I haven't used the TET yet. I think Wes is going to do that when we do some variations. Oh yeah, and then in the middle of kind of jamming, I wanted to get some extra modulation. So I used one of our newer modules, the VCO 1U, to just use it as an LFO and get some movement going in there. And that is pretty much it.
Is there any, are you using mostly envelopes from the Quadrax, or are you using any of the other modes yet?
For the Quadrax, it's all just envelopes. And so I've got both amplitude and filter envelopes for the lead and bass. Those are coming from this Quadrax. And then the second Quadrax on the right, that's doing the envelopes for the drums.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, I was thinking in my head, maybe we kind of morph it, like take the tempo down and morph it into like a more ambient, like a slower patch, and then get some like synced modulation from TET or Tetrapad in there.
Cool.
Yeah, and then if anyone has any questions, drop them in the chat. We're watching it, and we can take that in and do some tweaks. Yeah. You want to switch?
Yep.
Should we switch mics?
We can keep the same mics if it's long enough.
This one's synced up. Switch. All right, we're back online. We'll watch that and then go from there. We'll stay on the mic. I think the patch is probably a little quiet. All right. Need some case here. Which oscillator is the bass?
That would be the second.
This one? I'm also going to modulate the BPM. Very slow BPM. did a few tweaks there. I don't know if there's any requests in the chat.
Not yet, but there's a couple questions. So let's see. Someone was asking what the GX is being used for.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
maybe you can explain that.
So we have GX in transport mode. So the top jack is run, the second jack is reset, and then it's a variety of clock outputs below. So we have a 16th, and then so divide by 1 basically, or multiply by 1, same. And then divide by 2, and then 2 divide by 4s, but they're offset with each other. So if you want some very boring, fast techno, you can patch a kick and a hat into those two. And then there's a divide by 8 and a divide by 16. And so the reset we have going to the steppy, and then the clock we actually have multed twice into, into the 2 hubs. And then that's going into the steppy. We have a clock going into the TET, and then yeah, and that's the main destinations for the clock. One of the interesting things that we do here is we use the divided outs to sync the planar and the TET. And so the planar has a divide by 8 clock. And so that means when the planar is recording, it's going to trigger on basically the 8th pulse, and then it's going to trigger it stop after you stop recording. It's basically gated to like a 2 or like a half bar loop, and so it's a lot easier to get like synced recording when you use a divided clock like that, as opposed to like the 16th clock in there, because then you might get like 5 pulses or 17 pulses. This way you'll always get 8, 16, 24, or you know, divisions like that. And then we're doing the same thing on the TET, and I have the 2 filter cutoffs patched into the fader, into the first 2 channels of combo mode. And then that is also the reset for TET is actually coming from the GX, from the divide by 16th output. And then for sync settings, I have the looper sync set to reset, and that's something that was added in the newest mode. And so for that one, if I wipe out the modulation and then hit record, it kicks in on the next 16th divided, and then it'll stop when the final one comes. And so now we have an exact 16-step loop. And then that immediately goes into overdub mode. And so you can basically just draw your modulation, and then as long as that keeps repeating, you can just touch it and change it whenever you want, and it'll write those. If you want temporary modulation over top of that, you can turn off the overdub, and then it'll snap back to where you were. And then if you want kind of smooth transitions for that, you can turn a little bit of slew onto each channel, and then you won't get like really fast spikes. Yeah, so that's a GX. It actually does quite a bit. Like as far as syncing and everything, my favorite mode is always the transport. The other ones are a little more experimental, kind of like generative things. If you want to trigger drums based on which stage is active, things like that, or mod lanes. Yeah.
There's a couple more questions, but before that, I just want to tell the people in the chat that we're going to be taking suggestions for anything you want to see patched with this system. So if you've got any particular things you want to see these modules do or us modify the patch, just post them in the chat while we answer the next couple questions that are here. So Cedric in the chat asks, is there any chance that the GX can be used in the future to send external CV like A and B? And the answer to that is no for the GX, because that's just a gate expander, so it's only capable of putting out gates. So that's why we have it like transport mode and other kind of generative modes.
Yeah, it doesn't actually have a DAC. so it can't actually generate a varying level of voltage. So it's always just it's 5 volt or not.
Yeah, it's just an on-off. So unfortunately, no, we can't use the GX to send additional CV out of the Metropolix.
Unless you want 5 volts. Then you can get 5 volts.
Yeah, unless you want 5 volts only. And then Cran Fisco asks if triggers on the GX can be offset from the Metropolix, which I think is what you were talking about, the kind of techno drum thing. Maybe you can explain that a little bit more.
I mean, there's 2 of the outputs. One is divide by 4, and it's on the same
Pulse.
It's on the same pulse as like the regular ones, and then the other one is delayed by 2 steps, and so only that one is offset. On the clock output, and you won't be able to see it, but if you have one, go to Alt Clock. On the clock output on the Metropolix, you can set the division to pretty much anything up to 256, and then you can also set the clock offset there. And so that one you could do like divide by 16, offset 16, and then it would play for 16 pulses and then fire the first one, and then it would do every 16 after that. And so that output can be configured, but the GX, you can put them into different modes, but outside of that, there's not an offset setting for that.
Another question from Cedric is it possible to add some randoms on stage pulses for GX? I'm not quite sure what he means by that, but
there's a stage pulse out. No, I mean, right now the GX is set up where you kind of choose one of the pre-configured modes. If we went any farther, we'd probably have to add a whole menu system, make each output individually customized.
Yeah, I guess like if you wanted to get kind of something a bit more generative, you could have a new stage out on the GX and then set your stages to a random sequence and have different pulse lengths for each of them.
That's a good point. So if we do, if we find an unused mod lane, like 7 here, if we set that order to, we'll just do straight up random. Where to go? So now this mod lane is moving at a random rate, and then if we go to the MX setup, we can do mod stage num, and then we want mod 7. And so I'll turn up the tempo just so we can see. Oh, my mod lanes are muted. So now we're getting a random gate out of the GX. In this patch, it's going to be very odd. But that will actually get us like I mean, you can get a random gate out of it, but it won't fire them all randomly.
Yeah, there's like a lot of possibilities which you can do with the GX and the mod lanes, and you do have 8 of them. I find, at least in most of my patches, I don't use all 8, so if you wanted to use that to add a bit of kind of unpredictability, that's a good way to do it, is just combine the mod lane with the GX.
In the next update, there is a few more modes for GX. There's an alternate transport mode with some slightly different clock divisions and multiplications on it. And then there is another one that spits out divided clocks, and they have some random applied to them. So that might kind of fill the bill, but that'll be in 1.4.
Okay, guess we didn't get any like particular questions about these modules, so maybe you can just do another modification of the patch and mess around a bit, and we'll see if there's any more questions at the end.
All right. All right. Cool. Modulated my BPM right off the charts. I think that's it.
Yeah. So there were a couple of questions. So Cedric asks if you can show some tricks with the mod lanes that you like to use, I guess.
BPM is one of them. Since you can modulate like the full range, so you can go from 0 to 400, it's actually very fine adjustments. Only fine adjustments are needed to actually move like 20 or 30 BPM. So I like to do a really large divide. So in this case, it was 64. And then every 64, so basically 8 runs through of track 1 or 2. And then if you ramp the mod lanes, then it will slowly ramp the BPM up and down, things like that. You can set it pretty wild. You can also put BPM on control. Yeah. One of the other things I like is the skip inverts. So if we, oops, which one? Oh, it's got to be running. Skip invert on control. You can also do this with a mod lane, and then it just becomes a toggle. And so again, if you divide the mod lane, you can have these things happen over like complete bars or setups like that. But skip inverts is cool. Basically takes the active stages and switches them. You can apply them to track 1 and 2, 1 or 2, and 1 and 2. And then you end up with like some pretty wild pattern changes there. You can put up the synth. Oh, this fader. Also, if you select all of them, you can actually have it just mute. It'll stop advancing that sequence, and then this will switch it back on. Yep. Transpose is a good one for mod lanes. It's like a classic. The accumulator, the options seem simple, but they can actually add a lot of variation. You can change the direction of the accumulator to go down. You can make it go up. You can stop it. So if you wanted things to only, if you want a delayed accumulation, you can set your accumulator on your track, and then on the mod lane, divide it by 8 or 16, and then have it enable only for those 8 steps for one stage of the mod lane, and then the accumulator will only be active for that pass, and then it will turn off again. And then if you're using the track accumulation, then your whole track will be transposed to whatever your accumulator was set at. That's one thing. If you want random accumulation, you can just change the mod lane order to random. That's kind of a good trick just for any kind of randomization on mod lanes. Set the play order, and that'll give you quite a bit of variation on when things get applied or what changes.
Yeah, sounds like it might be a good idea to do a kind of mod lane deep dive at some point.
That'd be good.
In the future. I think that'd be a good idea for a video or something on our website or something. That's Cedric also wanted to know if it's possible to self-modulate the Metropolix, like patch one of the outputs to the mod inputs.
You could patch the A and B. You can assign the mod lanes to A and B and patch them to X and Y. But the aux destinations for the modulation are the same as the mod lanes. So all it would introduce is a delay, because the mod lanes get processed, and then the output happens at the same time as a track. So the mod lane from stage 1 will get sent out at the same time as track stage 1, and it probably won't get applied till the next stage. So you'd actually just be delaying your...
But I guess you could have one mod lane do 2 different things and get some kind of interesting effects that way. So it probably still has its uses. And then Matt asks, but using the Quadrax channel in yellow mode for the LPG noise sound, yeah, maybe we'll try that in the playout video and see how that goes.
Oh yeah, and the burst.
Yeah.
See
We're
where
going
this.
to try that now.
Sure. Maybe if there's any more questions.
I think that's the last question. So yeah, maybe I'll just let Wes play us out, and then we can get that burst thing going in there with the noise as well. I think that'll be cool.
Just got to find that channel.
Okay, well,
right.
yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. We're just going to do a play out jam, and we're hoping to. Oh, wait, one more question. Would LFV work with this patch? I think we had an LFV in there, but we just
I don't think I patched it in.
didn't end up patching it. Maybe we'll do that in the outro video also. And then one more question from Cedric. Is micro tuning possible? Currently, no, but
There's yeah, I mean, it's feasible, but the UI would be, I think, quite a bit.
we're still thinking. We're still thinking about how best to do micro tuning stuff, because from time to time people do ask us about on the MIDI module and on the Metropolix if they want to do some kind of micro tuning stuff. We haven't really decided on what the best possible way to do that is yet, but we're always kind of taking user suggestions into consideration. So if we come up with something that we think will work, we'll definitely add that. So that looks like it for questions for now. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and Wes is gonna modify the patch some more and play us out. And yeah, we're hoping to do more of these kinds of jam and patch demo videos in the future. We've got a room set up for this purpose now. So yeah, every few weeks we're hoping to do another one of these. And yeah, stay tuned, subscribe to our channel, and yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thank you.
Play us out.
See you later.
Put me back in.